So we left off the last time on part one with hyperbole, which is a cognitive message strategy. Hyperbole is an untestable claim, as I said before. Untestable claim like the world's greatest cup of coffee, or an untestable claim that says we are the best, we're the greatest, etc. Um, a really good one is Red Bull gives you wings. Nobody actually takes that literally, although Red Bull did get sued that said over the Red Bull gives you wings hyperbole. And we would talk about that later on when we talk about ethics in advertising. But we don't have time this semester to do that. But Red Bull did get sued. Someone said, hey, I drank some Red Bull. I didn't sprout wings out of my back. Of course, Red Bull never expected anybody to sprout wings out of their back after they drank a Red Bull. They did get sued, and the terms of the suit was not disclosed, but I'm sure that it didn't go very far with that because that is a hyperbole. Now, a testable claim would be we are the lowest carb. You could say that we are the lowest carb beer. You'd better be, because that's a testable claim. A testable claim might be that we're 1/3 fewer calories than a regular beer. That is a testable claim. So you've got to make sure that you have data that backs it up. But a hyperbole is an untestable claim. This next video that I'm going to show you is an excellent example of Miller Lite and something that is truly, absolutely, positively ridiculous. It is a hyperbole, an untestable claim, and again, no one really figures that this actually happened, but I want you to watch this video and think about what the untestable claim actually is.
Miller invented light beer, the original 96-calorie Pilsner, and that changed everything. This led to fewer guys with beer bellies, which led to more women attracted to those guys, which led to dates, second dates, wedding bells, and honeymoons, which led to hubbada hubbada, boom, which led to you. Miller Lite, we invented light beer, and you're welcome.
So lots going on in that commercial there with Miller Lite. First of all, it's an untestable claim. Miller Lite claims that your parents got together because of light beer and less beer bellies, and because of less light beer, less beer bellies made people more attractive. You were the product of that, which is an absolutely ridiculous claim. But that is a great hyperbole. Also in there, if you'll note, Miller Lite also used the cognitive message strategy of a preemptive strategy, saying we were the first light beer, which led to less beer bellies and more beautiful people, which led to you. So anyways, that's an example of a hyperbole. The cognitive message strategy also is a comparative strategy. We've seen this direct or indirect comparison, this product versus another product. Oftentimes, you've got to choose your comparisons very carefully. So people will say something like the leading brand. Because if you say we're better than Coke, you'd better be, or Coke's going to come right after you. But if you say we're better than the leading brand, no one knows really who the leading brand is. So you can have either a real or fictitious competitor when it comes to comparative advertising. So that kind of takes us from the cognitive strategies to the effective strategies. The effective strategies, there's really two effective strategies. There's resonance. I always want to say renaissance, but it's resonance and emotional. Remember, emotional is one of the appeals. It's also an executional framework. It's also a message strategies. So let's start with the resonance. Resonance advertising connects with consumers' experience. People say, yes, I remember that. It builds a bond with the brand because they do remember it. It takes them back in a time in their life when they recall something, they recall it fondly, they kind of smile, they look at it. This next Hallmark commercial I absolutely positively love because it is a resonance advertising commercial. Everybody can remember when they were nervous about going to school for the first time, especially if they have to go to a different school. If you're moving up from, say, primary to middle school or from middle school to junior high, it is very emotional. Everybody can remember that. This Hallmark advertising or this Hallmark creative goes right to the resonance effective message strategy.
Everyone's nervous going back to school. And your faith is broken. Do it with a heart wide open. Say what you need to say. Say what you need to. Say what you need to. Say what you need to. A Hallmark card. It's the biggest little thing you can do.
So if you look at that, that is a perfect example of a resonant advertising. Everybody can put themselves into the position where they were nervous. The little girl, you can see the little butterflies. She's nervous riding the bus, probably going to middle school at that point in time. Her mom gives her a card that says "You rock," and the butterflies fly out the window. So, great example of a resonant advertising strategy. Here's one for Cheerios. You can see the generational segmentation there. You've got well, it would probably be what we would call the I generation, which is a little kid in the middle. You've got the mother, which is a Generation Xer, and then you've got what looks like the grandmother, which would be the late Xer or the early boomer. And it's using resonant effective message strategy. Everybody can remember when they ate Cheerios. And then finally, the cognitive message strategy is action inducing, always promotional support with couponing. This is when they use a scarcity appeal such as while supplies last or get it now, etc. There is an example, $50 off for Cub Cadet. You see all kinds of different promotional advertising and things like that, which goes right to the conative or action-inducing strategy. So we talked about the hierarchy of effects model back in chapter 5. If you look at the cognitive strategies, the affective strategies, and the conative strategies, it goes right to the hierarchy of effects model: awareness, knowledge, liking, preference, conviction, and purchase. You've got cognitive, affective, and conative. So you have the different message strategies. You have the different behavioral attitudes, which is cognitive, affective, conative. And then you have the seven advertising appeals, which are fear, humor, sex, what's in the word? Rational, emotional, music, and scarcity. So please don't get those confused because we are going to test them on those. So your executional frameworks, you've got animation, slice of life, testimonial, authoritative demonstration, fantasy, informative. And we're going to go through each one of those. Animation is very well used these days. Animation through a green screen, animation through just regular cartoon animation. Because of the digital age, animation has become very, very popular. Originally, it was cheap. Then it got very expensive, and now with digital, it's also very cheap. If you look at a digital, I'm not going to show you the 1970s, that type of thing, but if you look at today's animation strategies or executional frameworks, they're very, very sophisticated.
Remember when we were young and only just begun, counting colors in the sun and naming everyone. There's a rainbow in you, and all the colors flying.
So if you look at that commercial or that creative right there, very strong animation. It's all digital. It's very, very strong to the senses because you've got the music and then you've got the visual, very strong visual content, all done through animation. Here's one that's done through green screen. Green screen is very popular these days, where you can put any background you want for anything. Here's a digital green screen commercial. I think this is one. Let's hope. Yes. Great use of green screen there on a digital animation commercial. Obviously, that monster was digitally digitized. And so you've got animation anymore is not only just animation, but it's animation with digital green screen. Slice of life. A slice of life is what we would call a creative that has an everyday occurrence, whereas you're doing something, it's an everyday type of thing. You're having supper, you're out doing something that is something that's really quite common. The components of a slice of life, all slice of life's creatives start with encounter. You have some type of an encounter, you have a problem, you have an interaction with a problem, and then you have a solution. Encounter, problem, interaction, solution. And again, it's used as an everyday occurrence setting. Here's one with McDonald's. So if you look at that particular creative, the encounter was a boy and his grandfather fishing. The problem, the fish aren't biting. The interaction, he takes a French fry and he puts it on his fishing pole. That is the solution. And then you've got a bit of humor at the end where everybody's chasing the French fry because it's the best French fries on the planet. Excellent example of a slice of life ad. We are going to come back with a testimonial ad and finish up the rest of Executional Framework in part 3 of chapter 7. Until then, take care and we'll talk to you later.